Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast. Spoiler alert, we don't discuss conventional, linear, boring career change here. This is the place where we talk about finding an aligned career path that feels like an extension of who you are, where you get paid for being yourself. Forget personality quizzes, soul-crushing scrolling on job sites, and breaking your brain trying to find your why. Join me and many other career changers who've changed their career holistically by first defining who they are at their core and then using this blueprint to design a fulfilling career or business. We use the mind-body-soul approach, and we take into consideration the complexity and multidimensionality of all that you are and want to represent in the world. This is where purpose-led careers are born and built. I'm your host, Vilma Oseita. Let's go. Hello, career changers. What's up? Those of you who've been listening to my podcast for some time, you might be quite surprised to be getting more regular content from me. I know, what's happening? I just always loved connecting with you, and now I've just decided to do it more regularly, okay? So hopefully you're enjoying listening to these episodes just as much as I am enjoying recording them for you. Now, the reason why I was prompted essentially to record this particular episode is because I observed some of you, including some of my clients, who finally, after years of doubting themselves, land on this amazing aligned career. And after the initial high, initial excitement and joy and celebration, because truly it is such an amazing feeling to arrive to this full-fledged realization and acceptance of what your purpose-led path is. So after this initial high, many of them, perhaps you included, they drop in energy and they lose momentum, and essentially they start wavering in their commitment to turn this new aligned path that they found into your actual career, into your actual lifestyle. I've had people tell me, now that I know what the path is, because, before knowing, usually people spend so much time obsessing over and trying to understand what purpose looks like for them. But once they find it, they suddenly don't feel that same level of urgency to transition. So they tend to withdraw or get busy with other things in life. And it's almost like they start back paddling into their old life, which is surprising, I think, even for them to observe, because that was such a big sort of goal and challenge for them, right? And they had spent so much time and effort figuring it out. Now I will say this, it is quite common that after finding an aligned path, we do sometimes want to take a break, because getting there, like I said, is arduous. It requires us to slay many dragons, or many gremlins, as I like to refer to them. And it requires a lot of raw vulnerability and honesty to admit certain truths to ourselves. So after you've rested and after you celebrated, you then essentially have two options. Option number one, you do in fact evaluate and decide that there's no rush after all. And now that you have a direction, you're fine with staying in misaligned job, and you're fine with slow and steady change, or perhaps other areas of your life need your attention. Maybe you're buying a house, maybe you're starting a family, right? Like you feel like, okay, now that I know this is not necessarily my top priority anymore, and so you opt out automatically for a longer transition that may take you several years, 5 years, you're not in a rush anymore. And if that's generally how you feel, and it actually feels good in your body somatically, then congratulations. Honestly, it's like such a beautiful, juicy place to be at. And I'm truly, truly happy for you. However, if you're in the second camp of those who are noticing this slump in energy, this slump in commitment, and you are not pleased with that, meaning that you would like to continue with your transition efforts, then this episode is for you. So what I thought I'd do is walk you through a few stages of what to expect after we land on an aligned career path, because I feel like majority of this podcast and majority of my episodes have been focused on the beginning, the initial stages, of how to find your purpose. What does it look like? What does it look like when we're making decision? What are the shadow aspects of making that decision? And I feel like I kind of have neglected talking about what happens after, because finding an aligned career, it really is just the very beginning. So what I will do in this episode is share with you the different stages after you find alignment, what to expect in each, and how to work through them. I'll give you some really specific advice that I have for you on how to successfully go through that stage and get to the next level. This is content I've never shared before. I don't really talk about this with my clients, so I'm actually excited that I have a resource where I'm finally getting all of these downloads out into one episode. So let's start. So basically, after you've identified what it is, you made the decision and decided to commit to embracing this new path, you will have then the first stage. And the first stage is preparation and planning stage. Meaning that once you arrive to your enlightened moment of like, oh, angel choir singing, dots connecting, you realizing what path you want to pursue and why you want to pursue it. Remember, why is key. You're having a clear why is like your roots. If you're a tree, it's your roots. It's the grounding that you will need throughout this journey. So then once you have it, then what would be important is not to lose the momentum that you've built and channel that energy straight into creating a rough timeline, milestones, setting goals, and creating a system or carving out time and space for this new venture, especially if you still have a full-time job and or you have a family to take care of. Usually it's the case, both are yes. This is something we do also with the ladies in the Holistic Career Change Group program, where essentially the last part of the program is solely dedicated to planning out and preparing for the transition. So I'm going to give you an example. So let's imagine, because, with examples it's much clearer. So let's say that you want to move into mediumship. You're a talented medium. You've never really done this before. Your current career is completely different, not related to that. So you want to go into mediumship. Essentially, you talk to dead people and you want to start building a practice. I love this example. I do work with several mediums with my current one-on-one clients, and I adore them. Okay, so when you're in this first stage, here's what I would advise you to look into. Number one, you want to set overall time for your transition, and you have to be super specific about it. If you're elusive, if you're ambiguous, if you're wishy-washy, your transition will be the same and your timeline will be the same. It will look like 6 months down the line when people are like, oh, so have you built a business? Do you have clients? You're like, yeah, I'm getting there, but you have nothing to show for. So here you need to set a transition. And even if you don't necessarily hit it exactly, trust me, it's very important to have a specific number for your brain. Is priming your brain. So for instance, it could look like, I want to be in a new career in 18 months, so year and a half. Set that timeline for yourself. Number two, what you want to do then, you want to break that timeline down into key milestones. These usually are, if you decided essentially to pursue a new certification, you need to understand how long does it last. So say it's 6 months of psychic gifts training, okay, if you're a medium. Then after you finish with the education, then you start setting up your practice or your business. So say the next 3 months after you finish, you focus on business setup, you start, to create a brand on social, create content, and then the remaining 3 months of the year, you focus on client acquisition, you focus on networking, you focus on organic marketing, you focus on kind of like those income generating activities. So by the end of those 12 months, when you have a clear timeline, you will have, number one, completed your education, number two, set up your business, and number three, you have started working with clients, you're getting a proof of concept, and so on and so forth. Do you see how much you can do in 12 months? But it's only if you're intentional and clear with your time. And I know that what I'm sharing is basic, but the reason why I'm sharing is because many of you skip the step and then your transition becomes weird. You don't even know what you're doing yourself. So by 12 months at that point, you can then basically look at your job and you can decide if you want to fully transition already, if you're already getting clients and money coming in. Or what you can do also, you can reduce your hours at work and continue building a practice. So by the end of 18 months, you should have already income coming in, and then you can make essentially a financially safe decision to fully transition if you're ready to do that. Now, the reason why I'm walking you through it and why I am emphasizing here, because like I said, the timeline piece is something so many of you completely ignore and skip because you think it's too basic. So you kind of have a rough plan in your head and you hope it just works out. But I cannot tell you how much more intentional, focused, and excited, but most importantly, how much more grounded you will feel if you create that timeline. I've just walked you through the most basic timeline. It literally would take you 10-15 minutes max to create one for yourself. But what it does, it makes your change real. Because listen, I know how often you can find that aligned idea or industry, get excited, and then when the reality kicks in, or when people start asking you all kinds of confronting questions about your plans, this whole idea of transition may start to feel more like a pipe dream than reality. So having this timeline, and I often advise my clients to actually have it even visually printed, or just you can make it yourself and hang it somewhere in front of your face, on the wall, in front of the desk, or wherever, where it's in your face, basically, where you will see it often, because this will be priming and programming your conscious and subconscious minds and preparing you for change. So once you have your timeline, once you have the milestones, another big prep piece is making sure that you set very, very, very caps lock, underlined, bold, very strong boundaries around the time and the energy that you'll be spending on building this new career. Again, I have been talking about this in the other episodes. Don't leave this career change to chance and hope that just because you found what it is, it will magically fall into places without you showing the universe that you're ready and committed to put in the work. Essentially, don't be lazy and try to be proactive. So what that looks like is essentially reviewing your schedule and getting super clear when you will be dedicated time to either studying or building a business or applying for another job. In the mediumship example that I give you, you need to have time to study, you need to have time to book client sessions. Maybe it's every morning between 6 and 7 a.m. before you start work. Maybe you can dedicate half a day on Saturday to create content. You need to be super clear about it. Don't just leave it to the week and be like, I'll figure out when the week comes. You won't. Because if you're not specific, trust me, I promise you life will happen, because life always is happening, and you then won't feel like it, or you will be tired, or you won't be motivated. Again, another big mistake that I see clients make is they're looking for motivation to work in an aligned career because they think that if it's an aligned career, I should always be energized and motivated to work on. No. You may be going through that time of the month. You may have just had a fight with your husband. There will be many times where you have zero motivation to work with, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. And when you have that clear schedule, and again, that schedule can change monthly, just have that dedicated space and time, right? And if you don't, you will end up essentially prioritizing seemingly quote unquote urgent matters, which are not urgent at all, and start putting other things and other people first. So you need to be clear, you need to set those time pockets, and you need to have boundaries around it. And then just show up for it religiously. You spending an hour or two a week when you feel like it may extend your timeline to years, you guys. So it's a bit of a wake-up call. You need to regularly be spending time on this. A good example is my client, Michelle. She was on the podcast. She was the one who was transitioning from wine industry into relationship therapy. So she has a full-time job. She has 2 children. She's a single mom. Well, she's sharing with her ex-husband, but still, right? She has kids very often. So she has a lot on her plate. And she's essentially studying for this new degree. So what she did, she designed a schedule where she would study for her degree first thing in the morning. I can't recall, was it 5 to 6 a.m. or something like that? And she would even have a separate workspace set up, because that's also very helpful to divide, to have a completely different area. Then she would essentially have her morning routine. She'd work out, whatever she does. She would take her kids to school, and then she would start her working day. which means that she would start the day with her most important priority, her new career. And then she didn't have to worry that life or others or her kids or job would get in the way. And that also, by the way, allowed her to be present with her kids, present with her hobbies in the evening, because she has, again, attended to her most important priorities in life already in the morning. She worked out, she takes care of her mental health, she studied for her new career. And that means she has no guilt, because you know that guilt, that annoying voice is like, you should not be watching Netflix. You should be working on your new career. You should be posting on social media, whatever it is that you're doing. When you attend to that as your priority, evenings are so relaxing and you can actually rest versus have that inner annoying critic yelling at you that you should be more, do more, right? It only usually happens if we didn't attend to that earlier in the day. So hopefully you can be inspired to do that. If Michelle can do it, you guys, you can do it too. Now, another thing in the prep stage, what you want to make sure that you align, again, don't leave it to chance, is make sure that you surround yourself with a team of cheerleaders. Someone who could hold you accountable on these like mini weekly goals, someone who could comfort you and believe in you when you feel low, because you will feel low at times. Someone who could guide you when you're feeling stuck. And all of these could be 3 different individuals. And as much as possible, you want to get in communities of like-minded people. So say if you're studying for that mediumship, you want to lean on your peers for support, for problem solving, for inspiration, and they will be the ones who get it. And finally, in that prep and planning stage, what you really want to spend time on, and that's a super big piece that I really want you to not ignore, because many of you dance around this, is reviewing your finances and planning for your transition. This is not thought work. This is not, I think I should be okay. This is getting super specific and clear on your financial situation. So you basically need to do a full-blown inventory. How much do you earn? How much do you have in savings for 401k? How much would you be willing to tap into the savings if you have them? Is there a certain amount that you can use for transition? What are your non-negotiable monthly expenses? What are the expenses that you would have if you wanted to lead a comfortable life while transitioning? Do you have any bonuses coming in that you can use for transition, etc., etc.? And then once you review that all and evaluate, you need to understand how much money you need to have in your savings should you want to quit at some point and just focus on your new venture. And while I don't advise quitting right away, you know where I stand with that, there's a point when, say, maybe you already start seeing traction in, say, a business that you're building, that you may want to consider quitting and then just focusing on building and scaling full time. Many of you, by the way, this is my experience, think that you're much worse off financially than you actually are just because you've never done that proper review. And some of you are the opposite. You're worse off than you actually think you are. So you're being a little bit delusional when it comes to your finances. So what you need is that cold, hard, objective, neutral look that will give you, once you do that, will give you so much peace of mind, I promise you, because I bet that one of the biggest causes of your anxiety surrounding career change is finance. I know it. I've been there. I see it every day. And if you don't know, by the way, how to do this evaluation and preparation for your finances, I can't recommend Elizabeth enough. She's also been on this podcast, and one of her niches that she specializes in and loves working with is women in transitions, in particular career changers. She has systems, she has processes, she has lots of grounded advice, which will remove so much stress for you. So I'm going to leave her handle in the show notes in case you want to reach out. Great support for the financial piece, especially if you feel nervous about it. So there you have it. The prep and plan stage, the first stage after you identify your career. Doing all of this should not take you more than a few weeks to work through and set up after you've decided on what you're doing. Okay? The next stage that goes after that I've observed with my clients is then we're diving into skill development and belief building. That's the second stage, skill development and belief building. Let me tell you what it is. Again, notice that I'm not sharing anything completely groundbreaking here. It's things you all kind of already know, but you don't necessarily prioritize them. So after you prep, you want to focus on skill building. So when you start studying, if we continue with that mediumship example, so you start going through your certification program, and then you start feeling out how you feel about these subjects and the courses and the material that you're learning. Do you enjoy what you're studying? Does it feel expansive and energizing? If it's all yes and green light, then in this second stage, here's the main piece of advice that I have for you. You want to start developing your skills and belief before you feel ready to do that. You want to start collecting your experience hours. If, again, you're that said medium, you want to start working with people, offering them free sessions in exchange for testimonials. You want to start putting yourself out there even while you're studying. You want to offer sessions to your peers if you can't find clients. Like really get into the practice of not just studying, but actually applying what you're learning right away. Day one, you can already start doing that. You can do that application of what you're studying. You can also write content about what you're learning, right? In that way, the reason why I'm offering you to do that, because you will learn that then this new craft and the technical knowledge that you need to have so much quicker. I don't want you to get comfortable in student mode. So many of you, when you get into student mode, you're like, oh, I'm a student, that's it. I should not be doing anything else. And I get it. And in some cases, your lecturers and teachers, professors will tell you not to apply the knowledge yet because you perhaps are lacking some technical skill. But in many cases, that's not the case. Being stuck in student mode is a bit of an avoidance strategy, which tells me that you might be avoiding feeling uncomfortable and facing the fear of doing something new and doing it wrong or doing it imperfectly. Newsflash, you will do something wrong and you will do something imperfectly because it's very hard to avoid that when we're starting something new. But you will do something quote unquote wrong in spite of whether you wait till you finish studying or whether you start practicing right away. So you might as well fail quickly and learn from it ASAP, and then you can move on. So if you want to transition quickly, that's my best, most heartfelt advice. Jump in and swim. It will save you so much time, so many hours, weeks, months, and so on and so forth. Now, if you will not be studying, but say you're starting a product business, then what you want to do is similarly to what I just said, is start building your business right away. Don't wait to finish some business courses. Don't wait to figure things out. You literally just start one step at a time. You ask yourself, what's the next step that I need to focus on without getting overwhelmed and wanting to make it perfect? Okay, first step's setting up my social media account. Second step, starting reaching out to warm leads. Generally, like one step at a time and start doing it. Why do you want to do it? Is because in your new aligned career, first, you will already be naturally gifted. And if you pair it with your intuition, you can actually accomplish and launch things much, much quicker than in any other career before. So there's no need to look at this new career in a linear fashion, because this new aligned career will grow exponentially in a cyclical fashion, not in a linear one. So the quicker you jump in, the quicker you can actually get out on the other side, feeling much more confident and excited about what you're building. Secondly, the more experience you have, the quicker your skill builds, and the quicker you become skilled, the more your belief will grow in this new path, and the more your belief will grow into yourself as a practitioner or an expert in the field. And in the possibility of turning this new aligned career into financially abundant endeavor, right? So it's all connected. So basically, in the second skill development and belief stage, my advice is to jump in way before you feel like you're ready. and trust the process and trust that you're much more equipped to excel at it than you give yourself credit for. So again, I'm quoting Nike, just do it. Okay, that's my main advice for the second stage. Then we move into the third stage. And the third stage I lovingly call the identity shift. And it's such a fun stage, you guys. This is where once you've been studying and applying your knowledge and building, an actual business, you start to more and more identify with this new path and this new aligned career and the new title than your old career and old title. It can be at times an unsettling stage, I'm going to be honest, because, well, the old career is familiar and it's stable and you knew what to expect there. And the new career is still a baby. But energetically speaking, you will be more and more pulled into this new path and more disconnecting from the old one. Now, at this sort of liminal stage, some of you may still have your day job. So what you will start noticing is that you care less and less about your performance there. Not in the sense that you don't do your job or you become shit at it, but more I'm talking about emotional connection. Emotionally, you will find yourself much less enmeshed with it, much less bothered. Your ego will be much less triggered and you will be just more neutral, perhaps than you've ever been. Now, what's important in this stage? What's my advice? My advice here is to proactively reaffirm and cultivate this new identity. The advice that you've heard me give on this podcast is when you network, when you need to meet new people, lead with this new identity. So you say, hey, I'm Vilma, I'm a psychic medium, and I have a private practice where I work with my clients in person and remotely. And on the side, I do marketing management. So your old career is becoming a PS, and you lead and you give the space 80% of time and energy to your new endeavor. And at the same time, you want to start energetically closing the chapter to your old career, even if you're still employed there. This piece, again, is something that many of you miss out because of the excitement for your new career. You guys, the old career has served you and been so loyal to you. It enabled you to arrive to this point in your aligned career, in your aligned life. Is there really nothing nice you want to say to it? Is there really nothing you're thankful for? I hope not. So what you can do sort of to start energetically closing the chapter is write a letter to your old career. It doesn't have to be a specific person, just the whole career, the whole profession. Thank it for specific highs and lows. Thank it for teaching you, for supporting you, for holding space for you as you giving birth to this new version of yourself. Feel your feelings. That will come in waves, but there is going to be a version, a flavor of grief in letting go this old identity. So don't be afraid to process. Don't be afraid to cry, to journal, to sit or to move with it. Don't run away from those feelings. Don't try to bury them by focusing on something new and flashy and shiny. There is a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of, grounding even in closing something and really acknowledging something as you're moving away from it. You can have closing rituals. Again, there are many of them out there. I personally love, if you say write that letter to your career, you can burn, if you want, this letter and then release the ashes into sort of river, ocean, sea, lake, whatever, right? Natural, somewhere in the water. You can also think of the colleagues that you've loved and have connection with. Maybe you want to connect with them more while you're still there. Maybe you want to go out for lunch and learn something new about them to ensure that you're valuing those friendships and connections that you've made, because I'm sure you have some. So you can start releasing this old career and start closing this chapter little by little, okay? Because we don't want open energetic cycles once we left those spaces. So that's your third stage. Okay, so we covered prep and planning, skill development, and belief building. The third is identity shift. Now, the fourth stage is the meaty one. It's a big one, where we either are already full-time in our new career or we're essentially almost full-time. And that stage is establishing credibility and overcoming challenges. Like I said, this is a big one. And honestly, it can last for some time because this is where you'll be adding the building blocks to your new career. You'll have a massive, massive learning curve, and you'll be learning so much, not only about this new career business, but about yourself. This is such a jump in your personal evolution, first and foremost. Like, this is where you become this new version of yourself. This is a stage where a lot of more money will start coming in. Usually, by the way, the amount of money will go up right after you resolved something internally. Because an aligned business, remember, is an extension of you. So every time you shift internally and energetically, every time you release something, every time you learn something, your business will reflect it. Your results will show it. And those of you who are business owners, especially aligned business owners, I know you're nodding to that because you've seen it. For example, every time I resolve a pattern or shift my frequency or address trauma or just have a good time, my business rewards me with growth in money or following or just the responses that I get from people. Is just, I don't know, just the wildest, most magical symbiosis. So an aligned business will always encourage you to continue healing and taking care of yourself, because when you do, it can grow as well. So what's important in this stage, or what would I advise you to focus on if you're in this stage? First, it's sort of a mindset hack. You need to expect setbacks and challenges. Some of you have expectation that it should be a smooth sailing. It can't be a smooth sailing. So you need to develop this mindset of that each challenge is here to teach me. So let me lean in and understand what I need to learn here. Celebrate setbacks because they're there to help you. They're there to redirect you closer to your alignment. So it's a very big part of your journey. We want to like them, we want to honor them, we want to accept them, we want to lean into them. Second piece of advice, don't get entitled. Okay, you're building something from scratch, so it will take energy, resources, and time. Be patient and be willing to do the simple, sometimes boring work. Just because you announce to the world that you're doing something new, it doesn't mean that people will start running to you and throwing their cash at you just because you said that you're doing it. Earn their trust, give value ahead of time, build your own belief in what you offer, fall in love with what you do and what you offer. And again, that energy will be magnetic. And you want to do all of that and work smart and really put your heart into what you're doing. Third piece of advice that I have for this stage is when it gets super hard, always go back to your why. Why are you doing this? Why was it important for you to transition into this? Remember what misalignment felt like in your old job. So whatever it is that you're going through right now, I bet is so much better than what you would have experienced on a regular day in a misaligned business. So even the biggest problem doesn't feel more like so paralyzing as the smallest of problems in misaligned job. So you need to keep your why near you. Why are you choosing to feel uncomfortable as you build this? Another piece of advice for this stage is always continue evaluating what's working and what's not working. Okay, so even if you kind of set the direction or find a niche or whatever it is that you do in your business, always come back and don't be afraid to evaluate and pivot, because you will forever be going through these micro shifts and micro adjustments, all of which is required to keep you and lead you towards an aligned path, because that path, sometimes there are, curves, there are like some secret pathways, right? So you'll always be guided there. But evaluate, embrace, right? And again, don't be afraid to change a little bit. Don't be afraid to evaluate. A lot of us are like, when something feels off, you're like, oh, we freak out, we avoid looking at it. But really, it's just like, feel into it and be like, okay, which part does not feel good? Oh, that part of the way that I spoke to that client, or that practice doesn't feel good to me. So again, don't throw the baby with the bathwater and think that the career is misaligned just because one aspect is not working. A lot of the times there's a nugget there for you. Usually by the way, this is a sidetrack, but usually that nugget is about giving you permission and giving yourself permission to do things your way because you have a unique take, unique energy, unique medicine to gift, and you will forever be supported and urged and asked to tap into that original take that you have, original knowing, or just a download that you have. And finally, don't forget to appreciate the magic of all of what you're doing. Sometimes, when we feel overwhelmed with all of these new developments, we forget to take a step back and sit in awe and celebration of the fact that we are unfortunately, but amongst such a small percentage of people on this planet who are courageous enough to pursue alignment in their life and careers. You are such a brave, magical creature, and I never want you to forget that. So even if it's hard today or it's a hard week, zoom out and understand that what you're creating is nothing short of a miracle. It's amazing. Okay, then we move into the 5th stage, and this is the scaling and growth. This is such a good stage. I'm saying that about each stage, but this is when you already feel so much more comfortable in your new identity, or it's more becomes your just normal identity, your status quo. When you have set the foundations for whatever it is that you're doing, if you're building a business, by the way, this is when you start freaking out about the money and you ease into the love of the work that you're doing. This is when we start naturally thinking of growing our career, scaling offers. This is where by the way, if you've been considering a portfolio career, this stage is where you may start reviewing and adding new elements to your aligned career. And also, this is a very creative stage because, again, our survival mechanism is not activated as much anymore as it is in other stages when we're still settling in and setting the scene and setting that foundations. The survival mechanism will still catch you sometimes and it can get really sort of scary and overwhelming. So in this stage, we kind of start, the survival mechanism becomes much more quiet. And like I said, we enter and we release that creative energy. And if your career was a house, they show me this image. If your career was a house and you were building a house, this is where you would be sort of styling your interior and working on the extension to the house and doing the landscaping. Is kind of growth and accessorizing, right? And notice, by the way, how each stage will make it easier and easier for you to relax into this new path. And this is one of the sexiest ones for sure, for me at least. That's the stage that I've been in for some time and is such a candy store, or well, for me, a crystal store, because crystal store for me is like a candy store. So the advice here is very similar actually as the previous stage. Continue to evaluate, continue celebrating the magic, continue to grow with challenges versus resisting them, and expect that in this stage, the fulfillment is bigger, but also the challenges will be bigger too. So the bigger the light, the bigger the shadow. But at this point, you will be much more equipped to face them and overcome them. Okay, so it won't be as dramatic anymore. And then quickly, the final stage is really just giving back. This is where you start being called to teach what you're learning. You start mentoring, you perhaps start contributing to the field, writing a book, getting into published work. This is, by the way, a stage that not necessarily everyone gets into, the final one. It's more really dependent on your unique career blueprint. If it's aligned with you to teach and share, you will definitely find yourself in this stage. So there you have it, the 5 stages. And I share these in sort of a linear fashion, but obviously as you go through your career change journey, some of these stages may be happening at the same time, or you may find yourself flip-flopping between a few of them until you can move into the next one. Like get upgrade is kind of like a computer game, get to the next level. You may find yourself kind of running around between a few of them. There's also, by the way, I know another question I get asked, there's no universal common sort of general time frame to complete these stages in. Some of you could get to the 6th stage in a year. Some of you may take 5 years or even 10 years. So, and Again, a reminder, one journey is not better than the other journey. It's just different for a reason. And it's all about what would serve you and what would serve the people that you serve the most. Okay, so always trust that timeline. But again, even though this is general timeline, you do have the power, you have the ability to quantum leap through these stages. And the way to do it, you simply need to lean into your fear and get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. Get comfortable with discomfort. And the quicker you can process your emotions, especially the uncomfortable ones, the faster you'll move through these stages. That really is honestly the only secret. Now, final caveat. If, say, you are adding a new element to your aligned career and say, when you're scaling and in the scaling and growth stage, for example, don't be surprised that you may have to go through all of the 5 initial stages again. Our system freaks out when we embark on something new, even if it's just like a smallest puzzle piece that we're adding. For example, when I was starting working with groups instead of just one-on-ones, I had to go through the prep and planning, skill and belief building. I had to go through identity shift. Oh, I'm a coach who now works with groups, right? And I had to go through scale and growth. And the only difference is I could do this so much quicker than when I initially started. It was literally maybe a month that I went through all of the stages. So don't get discouraged or make it mean that you're doing something wrong when you see yourself, traveling through these stages within an established career. When you're adding something new, it's normal, it's to be expected. Nothing has gone wrong. And the final piece of advice, which I don't really see as like a separate stage, but more like an underlying theme that you always want to be taking care of, is your basics. Is taking care of your body, mind, soul, and energy, and having those solid practices in place. The only way, especially at the beginning, at the prep and planning stage, at the skill development, belief building stage, the only way you can build this new business career, whatever it is you're doing, and still attend to your commitments is if you're first and foremost taking care of yourself. Are you sleeping? Are you moving? Are you drinking the water? Are you clearing your energy? Are you doing regular self-coaching? Because again, the belief always needs to be flexed. We always need to be working and exercising new thoughts and new beliefs to support ourselves with each stage as we grow through them. This is that part, like with each stage, where you definitely want to make sure you prioritize your self-care. You can always find time. Again, don't tell me you don't have time. You do. You just prioritize it on sometimes doom scrolling and Netflixing, okay? So that is kind of sort of the umbrella stage that should never leave your life. You should always be focusing on that. So there you have it. The 6 stages of building your aligned career once you made a decision and found that purpose. Preparation and planning, skill development and belief building, identity shift, establishing credibility and overcoming challenges, scaling growth, and giving back. Hope this episode is useful. Hope you continue power through the stages, and do reach out if you have any questions. Again, you have that send a text link at the top of the show notes. I love to hear from you. I love you all, and I'll speak to you shortly. Have a good week. Thank you for taking the time to explore a holistic approach to career change. If you've been struggling to identify a new aligned career path, or you don't know how to transition into your new professional chapter, and you feel like you need some guidance on transition strategies, make sure you go to the show notes and check out the support available for you. There are 2 ways in which you can work with me. One-on-one, where I will be personally guiding you to a new purpose-led career or business, or you can join the Holistic Career Change group program, where together with your soul sisters, you will not only have a proven step-by-step process to transition, but also a like-minded community going through career change alongside you. All the links and information below. Have a wonderful week.